Welcome, everyone. My name is Judy Blake, and I am the Leadership and Advocacy Coordinator for Family to Family Network. We are thrilled to be presenting another Wednesday training and honored to have Boyd Handley, attorney, who is going to be talking about special needs trusts. What are they? And important information that you need to know. We are thrilled to be having so many people on this call. I have with me, who I want to introduce, two of my colleagues who I could not make it in this world without. Christina Zavala, there you are, she's waving. And Leslie, where are you, Leslie? Let me find you. Leslie, where'd you go? There you are, Leslie. We don't want to show our picture? No, I guess Leslie's having a bad hair day. So Leslie is one of our parent liaisons. Some of you may know her, some of you may not. Leslie has been with Family to Family Network forever and a day. She is absolutely incredible. A wealth of information will help you till the end of time. Please, please reach out to us if you have questions, if you have concerns. So we will be sharing the PDF slides after Boyd's presentation, but we want you to listen to what he has to say first. So please hold your questions until after the presentation. You can write them in the chat box. His wife, Carrie Handley, is also on the phone. As Boyd says, she is his better half, and his contact information is in there. There will be a survey, and I've put the link in, which will be completed after the presentation. But we will be monitoring the chat box for Boyd. So please just listen to what he has to say. Such important information. I can tell you from my own personal experience, I'm a single parent of a 25-year-old with autism and other co-occurring disabilities. I had a special needs trust put in place for my son many, many years ago, long before I knew Boyd. And I felt it was something really important to do for a number of reasons, and Boyd will explain that to you. And I just think it's something that a lot of us parents need to do, and that's why it was very important to have this presentation. So please know that no question is silly. Boyd will explain it to you, and we want you to understand the information. So without further ado, Boyd, we so appreciate your time, we appreciate your expertise, and we thank you for your guidance. Go ahead and share your screen. Thank you so much.
All right, Judy, is that the right screen?
Yes, sir, it sure is, and thank you.
Looking forward to talking to everyone today, and thank you for your time. I've got a daughter with, my wife and I have a daughter with special needs. She's 25, so we've been through the same situation that you have. This is my second career. I was a geologist for about 40 years, so I've been practicing full time since 2015, and probably half of my 50% of my clients are families with special needs kids. So I do a lot of probate, wills and trust, guardianship, elder care, special needs law, and SSI and Medicaid. So I'm doing it because I enjoy working in that area, and I look forward to giving you some information on special needs trust today. Unfortunately, I have to give you a disclaimer. This presentation does not create an attorney-client relationship, and the information that I'm giving you is general information. Each person's situation is unique and different, and in most cases, there are many ways to fix a problem. So what I'm telling you today is just a possibility of one of the ways that if you have a problem, you can fix it. All right, I have a presentation on the special needs toolkit, which I give, and we're covering only one portion of that, the trust. But when you get this presentation afterwards, please look at this. And these are different things that families need in their toolbox to look after their special needs kids and young adults. And each one of these is very important. Do I need a special needs trust? Well, the only reason for having a special needs trust is if your child or young adult is getting SSI, Medicaid, or one of the other means tested government benefits. As you probably know, you can only have $2,000 in assets in order to qualify for SSI and Medicaid. And the special needs trust is a mechanism for shielding those assets if you are above that $2,000 mark. And also it helps in some of the ways that you can pay for things if you're getting SSI. One thing I do tell clients is that Medicaid, which is you automatically qualify in Texas for Medicaid if you qualify for SSI. They actually have SSI and Medicaid has a 5-year look back. What that means is that if your child or adult or even your elder family member gets rid of their assets within a 5-year period without selling them for market value, or if they're given something in assets in that time period, then it may disqualify you from SSI and Medicaid. So I always tell my parents when their children are reaching the age of 18, or if they know at the age of 18 that they will be applying for SSI and Medicaid, at age 13, look back and you may want to start thinking about contacting a special needs attorney and asking them about whether special needs trust is needed at age 13. Which is prior to that 5-year look back. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. As I mentioned, SSI and Medicaid, I basically tell parents my daughter is getting SSI and Medicaid, and Medicaid is the most important part. SSI, you're getting $783 a month. Of course, we get a little bit less than that. My daughter works at a few jobs during the week. But the main thing is the Medicaid portion. And a lot of parents come to me and say, well, can my child or young adult work? Of course they can. I think you can get up to make $1,250 a month before it cuts off your SSI. And I basically tell parents is that you're not going to be able to live off of $1,250 a month or the $783 a month. And, most of our children that are out working or young adults, we want them to get the benefit of socialization and, actually being productive in life. But you really have to look at what he or she is making. And as long as you keep $1 of Social Security, you still get Medicaid, which is the most important part. So I usually tell parents that, if your child is working, you may want to consider being sure that they don't make over $1,150 or $1,200 a month, where you won't lose the Medicaid. Because if you make over $1,250 a month and you lose SSI and Medicaid, you'll have to get medical insurance and everything like that. And there's no way that small amount of money will pay for all of that. Let me go back one more time. This is not, I didn't want to get into a lot of this, but in order to qualify for SSI at age 18, in most cases prior to that age, it's based on the parent's salary. But one thing I tell clients is once their children turn 18, and whether we're going into guardianship or they're not getting guardianship and can use the alternatives to guardianship, if they're applying for SSI, you cannot give them room and board if they're living with you, and you'll have to get an agreement, a rental agreement, to show a Social Security that they're actually paying you to stay in your home and eat your food in your home. We do that with my daughter, and as we get forward in the presentation, I'll tell you some of the changes that Social Security has done as far as that rental agreement, and how the ABLE account and a special needs trust can work together to fix that situation. What is the trust? Basically, it's a legal arrangement where you have a trustee that controls the property in the trust. In most cases, it's the parents or the grandparents that set up the trust in the beginning, and they can be in most of the documents that a trustee and a grantor also. And it's for the benefit of our children or a third-party beneficiary. The trust can be prior to death, or there can be testamentary, which is a document, a trust within the will that stays dormant until the person dies in the will. And trust can either be revocable or irrevocable. All of my special needs trusts are irrevocable. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then the trust can either be self-settled, which is a first-party trust, or a third-party trust, and we'll go into the definitions of each and the implications of each of those. There's tons of trust in Texas. We're going to talk about on the right-hand side the third-party special needs trust, the self-settled or first-party special needs trust. There is a Arc of Texas Master Trust, Pool Trust. The ABLE account's really not a trust, but it works as one, and we'll talk about how that works with the special needs trust. The Miller Trust is Medicaid with elder people. We won't discuss that. We'll touch a little bit on what's a 1301 management trust out of probate, and then there's also a 142 trust, which is out of the property code, and we'll just kind of briefly touch on that. Most cases, when we're doing trusts for members of our families with disability, we do a special needs trust, and then those special needs trusts can be a testamentary or outside the will type trust. And basically what these trusts do, they hold assets for our children or young adults that are applying for SSI and Medicaid. And it also helps us to pay for different things for our kids without it being considered as assets for our children, and keeping us from getting SSI and Medicaid. And we'll go through all of these. Trust, why we need one. Of course, we mentioned that it helps shield the assets of our kids or young adults in order to get government benefits. It also, in certain situations, lowers taxes, it shields benefits, keeps assets out of probate. That's a living trust. We won't talk about that today. And it can protect the trust child's inheritance, and we'll go through why that is needed and the issues that come along with that if you don't properly name trust in your will for a minor child, or if you name your life insurance policy or 401k to a minor child and die. And I'll briefly go over some of the things that happen with that if you don't do it correctly. A first party trust, or self-settled trust as it can be called, is a trust that can be established by the parent, grandparent, or the guardian of the child. Luckily enough, in 2016, there was a Special Needs Trust Fairness Act that was passed. And at that point, it allowed anyone that's disabled under the age of 65 to set up their own first party trust, which was extremely helpful to a lot of high functioning people that wanted to still qualify for government benefits, but still have their trust done where they could go forward with it. The main drawback to a first party trust is what we call Medicaid payback. And we'll go over that on the next slide. Well, eventually anyway. The assets that normally go into a special needs trust or something like an inheritance, in a lot of cases, a loved one or a family member can give your child something in their wills. If we don't catch it in time, then we can go in the probate process and get a 1301 management trust set up, which can be worded as a special needs trust, but it's a lot of pain and headache, and you're not going to have control of that money. So in most cases, inheritance, what we try to tell everyone is tell your loved ones, your mom or dads or grandparents, to put in their will the name of the third party special needs trust. And that really helps matters a lot. If your child has gotten a lawsuit, like a malpractice or things of that nature, if you get that money, you're going to lose your benefits. So that money can go into the first party trust. And also in a divorce settlement, if the spouse, if you've got a spouse that may be disabled and he or she has a divorce settlement and they're on SSI and Medicaid, they can set up a first party special needs trust and put that divorce settlement into it. One thing that I might note, in Texas, unfortunately, child support, once the child turns 18, is counted as an asset. And if that money is, I'm not a family law attorney, but if that money is going through the Attorney General's office, it cannot go into a special needs trust, and it's going to count against you. So definitely if you're going through a divorce, be sure your family law attorney either has a special needs attorney on staff or understands the implications with that. I mentioned the Texas Gate Medicaid payback program. It affects the first party trust, which has the assets of the disabled individual in it. Once that individual reaches the age of 55 and then later dies after that point, then the Medicaid program can come in and take back any money that they had given to that individual over the years. They can come in and on your first party trust, they can take money from that. They can take money from the ABLE account, and they can come in and take money from the Texas pool account if you have any remaining assets in that. They can also come in if that individual owns a house down the road. They can also come in and possibly take care of that cost from that if you do sell the house. Some of the services that are affected as you get older, if you're in a nursing home, have care facilities, or any of the Medicaid waiver programs, that's what they'll come back and go against your estate to get the refund of that money. And this is why the third party special needs trust is so good. It is made up on assets other than your loved one with a disability. It is not subject to Medicaid payback, but it does have limitations on what you can spend the money on. And this is one of the main deals, that when you do have a third party trust, you cannot spend it on food and lodging, which is what the SSI pays for. And but there's ways to get around that. A lot of the times when we have high functioning loved ones with SSI and Medicaid, they may be living in an apartment or group home, and you can take money from the special needs trust third party, put it into an ABLE account. We'll talk about that, and pay for food and lodging and not have any issues with SSI. One thing, if you do have a special needs trust, you will need to get SSI to approve it as you go forward. Also, the good thing about third-party trust, you can have as many as you want to. Grandparents can set up one if they really don't want to give any money to their children to look after their grandchild. In a divorce situation, you may have a divorce decree that asks each of the biological parents to set up their own special needs trust with their own assets. And this is where you can have multiple third-party special needs trusts for your loved one. The one thing I will say is that, since you can only spend money from a special needs trust on certain things, when you have multiple special needs trusts, be sure that the trustees totally understand what can be used from these third-party trusts, where you may have one trustee paying for something, and that could actually hinder or make your loved one lose government benefits. So when you've got multiple trusts, you really need to have a coordinator talking to all the trustees about that. Here's some of the things that you cannot pay for in a third-party special needs trust. You cannot pay for take cash out and give to your loved one. You can not pay for food and then rent and things of that nature. Basically, what comes under food and lodging. The way to get around all of this is that we can move up to $15,000 a year from the special needs trust, the third party, into an ABLE account. And the ABLE account, you can basically pay for anything. You can actually give money to the loved one. I know the Texas ABLE account here in the next couple of months will come out with a debit card. They've been way behind behind everyone with that. And once they do that, then the ABLE account will be very powerful in where parents can work with that with their special needs trust. I won't go through every one of these. But the special needs trust can pay for a lot of things. I've noted some of them. If you've got people looking after your child at home, they can pay staff salaries, any out-of-pocket, medical and dental and eye expenses. It can buy a car or a van to transport your loved one. Computers. You can take trips and vacations. You can't pay for mom and dad, but you can pay for your loved ones. And then, of course, the food has to be paid out of the ABLE account. So you have to be tricky. Of course, we've had SSI for my daughter since since she was 18. She's 26 now. We've never been audited, but you should always keep records where if one day you're audited by SSI or Medicaid, then you have those documents that you can show them. You can even buy a house for your child from your special needs trust, and there's no limit with the amount of money you can put in the special needs trust. You can put retirement funds. There's some issues there with the new Secure Act that came out the first year. You can put cash, homes, some issues with that, but you can put almost anything, and you can have investments accounts, bank accounts in the third party's trust. So it's very versatile for what it can do. Also, as I mentioned, it doesn't have Medicaid payback. And what that means is that at the time that your loved one passes away, you can have a beneficiary's name, like a will, in the trust. And at that point, then if there's any remaining assets in the trust, it can go to your beneficiaries. The one thing that I do in my special needs trust is they're irrevocable. What that means is that once you put something in, you can't take it out, and it can only be used for your loved ones. My philosophy is basically don't put anything into the special needs trust if you think you need the money later on in life. What we've done with ours is that mine's funded a little bit with some money that my parents gave my daughter before she died, but everything else is not funded. I've got my life insurance policy, my 401k, my house, and everything else, of course, going to my wife first. And then in both of our wills and in both of our retirement accounts and life insurance, the secondary beneficiary is my daughter's special needs trust. So that's how we've done it with my family. And in a lot of cases, that may be how you want to do with yours. I did mention the 1301 Management Trust. That's basically out of the Texas Estate Code. And how that works, just say, for instance, that your parents died, and in their will, they gave your special needs child an inheritance. And for whatever reason, they didn't name the special needs trust for that inheritance. So what's going to happen is the attorney that probates their will tell you what's going on ahead of time, and that you can get the probate court to set up a 1301 management trust. And what that does is you can word it like a special needs trust, and then those assets can be deposited into that management trust and will not affect your child's SSI and Medicaid. That's going to be subject to Medicaid payback, because it's almost like a first party special needs trust. And the unfortunate thing about that is that the court is going to either name a trustee or make you have a trustee being a bank or a professional trustee. So you're not going to have the ability of having your own trustee, and so you'll be going to whoever the court appoints as trustee and asking for money or assets from that trust. So it really takes everything out of your control, but at least it's a mechanism where if someone gets inheritance, then it will help out. One of the stories that I didn't have a client, but I did some consultation on this, where the husband of a child with special needs died unexpectedly without a will. And then based on the Texas is a community property state. So based on that, then the young man got almost half, or a little bit more than half of all the property. He got all his dad's 3 houses and all of that. And of course, he was on SSI and Medicaid. So this is one of the situations where the attorney did do a 1301 management trust and put all those assets in. But again, if you would do it correctly, then you would have control over all those assets, and you wouldn't have to be under the control of the courts. But it is good to know about this. You'll also hear about a 142 management trust. That's out of the Texas probate court, property court code, excuse me. And that's really done on a non person that doesn't have a disability, that may be incapacitated or doesn't have a legal guardian. And it's basically the same thing as a 1301, but from a different code. So it's very helpful also. So we do have some mechanisms. If you do have a loved one that gets an inheritance, it's just good to hear these names and know that things can be fixed in the probate courts. I mentioned ABLE Act. I just want to kind of go through it because we use it in conjunction with our special needs trust. Again, if you qualify for a special needs trust, you'll qualify for a ABLE Act. If you were disabled prior to age 26, there is a maximum lifetime contribution. But the good thing about it, you can put up to $100,000 in it without it being considered a resource for SSI. That's huge. If your grandparents did a 529 account for your child when they were born, and now you know that they're not going into college or a trade school, then they can roll that 529 over to the ABLE account, which is very good also. The one thing that the drawback with ABLE account, of course, it does have Medicaid payback, and there's a maximum amount of $15,000 you can put in a year. How my clients use this is that I had mentioned prior, once they turn 18, you've got to have a rental agreement with your child in order to qualify for, well, not qualify, but if you're giving them free rent, then that's going to deduct their SSI money each month. Excuse me. There's 2 ways of going about that. You can have a rental agreement saying that we're going to rent this for, say, $500 to our loved one. And you would tell Social Security that that $500 is what I would charge someone to rent the room on the street, anyone. I've heard recently, that's the way we do it. I heard recently that SSI, depending on who you get as the counselor come in, they're not letting you do that anymore. And the other way is that you take your mortgage, you take your utilities, your taxes, and divide by the number of people in your home. Say, for instance, you've got a mortgage of $2,000 a month. You've got taxes and all with another $3,000. and you only have 3 people in your home, you and your spouse or your significant other and your disabled child that just turned 18. So you divide everything by 3, and that's $1,000. Well, you're only getting $783 a month. So the child, you're giving that child whatever 1,000 minus 783 is, more a month. So in order, I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but what's going to happen is that you've got to put that 2 something more a month into an ABLE account, and then you can pay yourself out of the ABLE account for that money between the 783 and 1,000. So again, give me a call. I'll explain that to you. But you know, there's all ways as you're getting SSI, you've got to play with the buckets of money in order to keep that $2,000 a month and not let SSI knowing that you're paying for any food or any lodging for your loved one. So it's really a matter of playing with the money. You're not doing anything illegal, but it's just understanding the buckets that you have to put your money into to qualify for SSI. And I know I'm totally confused you by now. The ABLE account, I mentioned it can pay for almost anything, from daily living expenses to rent, housing, mortgage, education, legal issues. And so it's when it first came out, I was very skeptical about it, but when I got more involved in it, it's an excellent tool if you need it. If you don't need it, then you don't have to use it. But if you don't need it, don't even worry with it. But it's a very good tool to use the special needs trust as your children get older and do more in life. The ARC of Texas is very similar to the ABLE account. You can put really as much money into it as you want to. It's only liquid assets, cash that they will accept, or convertible funds with that. It does have Medicaid payback, but it is something that they take care of everything. So it's another area that you can put money into. It doesn't have the $15,000 a year issue that the ABLE account does. So a lot of situations, if you've got parents that are getting elderly, they have a special needs child, at one point they're not going to be around to take care of things, and the master pool trust may be the way to go with that. Some other problems that I like to touch with you. I think I mentioned that the parent that died without a will, what happens to the assets that may be going to the child with special needs. There's the 1301 with that. Another thing that's come up with a number of my clients is that you have a parent that has died and left a minor or even a special needs child with a life insurance policy. In Texas, until the child reaches 18, he cannot have a bank account without a parent on it. He cannot own property without having a conservatory with that person. So I've had a client that the parent died and left his minor child a $500,000 life insurance policy. Well, the issue we have with that is that there's only 3 ways the child can get that money. The child can turn age 18, and we sure don't want an 18-year-old to have a $500,000 in life insurance that comes to him. Or you can have the company put that into a UTMA account, which is the Texas Youth Minors Act, and that will at least hold the money until the child turns 21. Or you have to go to probate court and get guardianship of the estate, which is just crazy. But that's what the life insurance company is going to tell the parent of the child, minor child, that gets that. So that's why I tell parents is that either have a contingent trust in your will for your minor children if you die before they turn 18, or have a special needs trust, testamentary trust in your will that will put your assets to your loved one in that trust, and it won't affect Medicaid and things of that nature. We also tell parents, get a little bit away from the trust, but be sure to have a guardian named in your will for your child. And that's very important down the road because of we have intestate rules in Texas, and if you don't name a guardian in your will, then the court will tell you who the next guardian should be, and go from that point. That's probably what I wanted to cover today. I'm anxious to see what questions you may have with what we've covered.
Boyd, I think you wanted to show, there you go.
Yeah.
So there is, go ahead, Boyd, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's my contact information, and that's Team Handley. We go to a lot of resource fairs, or used to. My wife, Kara, on the left, and that's our lovely daughter, Caitlin, on the right. She's 26 now, and it's real funny. She really helps us at the resource fairs. I think she's a good message to parents with kids with special needs on how they can mature and grow up in life. And one time we were talking with other people on one side of the table, and I listened to Caitlin, and she was rattling off everything that we normally tell clients. And I just smiled at my wife, and I said that she's really growing up, because she makes us very proud. Also want to mention on my website, I've got a number of informational blogs, and I have an extensive list of resources that may be beneficial to you if you want to check on that. So we've got any questions, I'll be glad to cover those.
We actually do. If you could go ahead and stop sharing your screen, that would be great. One of the questions came from David. In terms of funding, are there tax issues with funding with 401k proceeds, required distributions?
Yeah, I'm not a tax attorney, so I won't cover that. But with the Secure Act that came into effect the 1st of 2020, there's different rules about if you put a 401k in a trust, and when you have to start taking money out of that. So I would definitely see your accountant or tax attorney for that. I've learned a long time ago not to touch questions like that.
So David, yeah, definitely contact your CPA on that. If you do not get an answer from your CPA, David, let me know, because I do know a tax attorney, and I'm happy to find out that answer for you, but your CPA should probably know.
Yeah.
There was a private question, Boyd. What type of trust can child support payments go into? Especially if it was the child support payments are not coming from Texas.
Well, again, you'll have to, I'd have to have more information on that. I know if it comes from if it doesn't come through the Attorney General in Texas, and possibly a similar situation in another state, you may be able to put into a first party trust, but I'd have to know more about that. And I would definitely talk with your family law attorney that did your divorce on that. But there's major situations in Texas where that doesn't work.
Where I'm sorry, it does or does not work?
It does not work. So
okay, so mom should talk to her family law attorney.
Yeah, family law attorney, or she can call me and give me some more information, and I may be able to answer the question. Yeah.
Okay. So mom, make sure you do that, and that would be great. So another question, for Medicaid payback, can they only take up to the balance in then trust, and up to how much can they recoup in total?
Well, if just say, for instance, between age 55 and death, if they've given your loved one $500,000, then they'll go after that $500,000. So it's what I tell parents is, on the ABLE account or on the first party trust account or even the pool trust account, really start spending that money and be sure that there's, as your loved ones, if they start getting sick or as they get older, try to spend all that money down. We tell clients in the ABLE account, only put in what you're going to spend a year in that account. Of course, it may be where you're spending over 15,000, but if you're spending 10,000 a year, once you have a month or two of expenses, only put that into the ABLE account and spend it down each year.
Yeah, and I know my head is spinning after your presentation. I'm not a lawyer. I never could have gone to law school. Not my cup of tea. So I'm glad you did. And somebody had asked, will I be emailing the slides to everyone? Yes, I will. Another question is, should a guardian be a trustee?
Of course. My wife and I are trustees of the Special Needs Trust. What I put in my trust or trust protectors, what that means is that as my wife and I get older, my son can take over as the trustee of my daughter's trust. I can still be, as I get older, I can be the trust protector, which is at a CEO level. And, I can actually, they're very powerful in my trust. They can actually get rid of the trustees. How that came about is that, a lot of these trusts or the trustees are banks. There was a situation a number of years ago in Texas where a bank was not doing their job. And so they now have trust protectors which are usually family members that can actually get rid of the trustee if they're not properly giving the funds out. So of course, a family member or you can be the trustee.
Yeah, and I think that gets really complicated because there can be honesty in good family members, and there can be dishonest family members. I mean, we see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. You just don't know sometimes. And but I understand the question, and I think that's a great question. So another person had asked, are you part of the Hyatt legal plan? And I'm not familiar, so I don't even know what that means.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
That's some of the plans. A lot of the big corporations have legal plans within that, and they're very good. Just be sure if you're using one of those plans, be sure that the attorney that they assign you understands special needs and things of that nature. Yeah.
Another great question. If we have an unfunded special needs trust and now want to fund it, how do you do that?
Okay. Basically, if you've got a tax ID number from that trust, you can take that tax ID number, either the trust itself or a certificate of the trust, and go to your bank or go to your financial institution with those two documents and fund it. That's all you need.
Okay. I know that some people have to leave. I'm going to thank you, Christina, for posting the link. I was just going to copy and paste. Please make sure that you send the link, not the link. Please make sure that you complete the survey. Christina just posted the link. Also, I want to mention that December 3rd, Family to Family Network is going to be celebrating 30 years of serving families. And Christina, do you have that link to post, or do you need me to? Christina's going to post that link as well. You can buy a ticket for as little as $50 to join us, or if you just want to make a donation, if you are busy December 3rd, it's going to be an hour long, but we would love to have you join us. I'm going to be honest, 2 of our grants were cut, and we are financially stressed. I'm not embarrassed to say it because in a nonprofit, these are not unusual times. And we really appreciate any donation that people can make. We realize that our families are stretched, shall we say, to the limit, and we understand that. But if you are able to make a donation, we would be most grateful. And Christina will be posting that link, I think. Sabina, so glad you enjoyed the information. Husa, or Ms. Penn, I'll call you. So glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Maria. The survey link isn't working for you. I am so sorry. I will be sending out an email to all of you with the survey link. And maybe that one will work better. Oh, remove the period at the end of the link. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Thank you for pointing that out. So our next presenter up next, and I'll make sure there's no more questions, will be in 2 weeks, and that will be on December 2nd. Her name is Sashi Nisankaro. She is also an attorney, but something very different. She is with the Southwest ADA Regional Office, Region 6. She is going to talk about accommodations in the workplace as required by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that presentation is going to be called You're Hired, Reasonable Accommodations in the Workplace. And this is really, really important. And why is that? We want everyone to lead what we call a meaningful life. And it could be within a dehabilitation program. It could be some kind of customized employment. It could be volunteering. It could be anything. But what we don't want, hopefully, is for your loved one to just be sitting on the living room couch, watching TV, and surfing the internet. Now, I realize that during this pandemic, a lot of our loved ones are doing that. That is what my son is doing, because it is just not safe to be out in the workplace for him. And I completely understand that. So since March, he hasn't been doing much of anything, and until there is a safe vaccine, that is the case. But hopefully we will be on the other side of this pandemic fairly soon. But that is going to be our next presentation. Other questions for Boyd? I don't see any others. One thing I wanted to mention that he brought up, so I have a dad that, oh, you sent one to him. Erica, was that oh, sorry. Okay, so I think there's a private message for you, Boyd, that was sent.
Question about look backs. Yeah, if you've got a joint account with your child before they turn 18, you need to understand, well, it really depends on if their social security number is on that account, because once they turn 18 and apply for SSI, then SSI is going to run a check on the social security number. I've got a few more minutes. So one thing that happened to us when my daughter turned 18, about 3 months after she turned 18 and got SSI and Medicaid, they stopped everything. We asked them, what's going on? Evidently, when my daughter was born, my parents gave her some savings bonds. And those savings bonds have been sitting in the safe in our house for 18 years. I haven't paid attention to them, and some of them were in my name and my social security number, and some of them were in her social security number. Well, they found the ones in her social security number, and they were over $2,000 in savings bonds. So Social Security made us spend those down. A lot of them were not even mature yet. And then we had to prove to Social Security that we spent that money on her. My wife will attest to it. I didn't do it, but she spent hours and hours on the phone trying to get SSI back. I believe she was able to get that back, but then it took another weeks to get Medicaid back because they don't talk to each other. So that's one of the things that, you know, you really have to be careful when you apply for SSI to understand the assets that your child has. I'll be glad, you know, I would have to know more about how much is in the checking account, joint checking account, which is a alternative to guardianship, but it really affects everything else. So just be aware that at the time that you apply for SSI for your child at age 18, you need, before doing that, see what assets that they have that may be under their Social Security number. And if you have more than 2,000, then you either need to spend them down prior to applying for SSI, unfortunately.
Thank you, Boyd. A few more questions. Do I need to come to you to set up the special needs trust, or can we do this via phone? I'm in Kingwood.
Yeah, I'm doing everything by Zoom. Luckily enough, we can even notarize documents by Zoom. I'm a
Really?
notary and I can do that. The only thing that we can't do, and I know some attorneys are doing it, is notarizing the two witnesses on a will. I still do not do that. There's too much liability involved. So I have a big conference room in my office where we have the people on one end, I have two witnesses on the other, and we're doing that. But from a trust standpoint, we can have a meeting by Zoom. I'll send you in a questionnaire. We'll do everything via the internet, and then even at the end, I can notarize that document by Zoom for you, and it will be valid.
Very good, thank you. Deborah had a great question. If the guardian you designate upon your death predeceases your loved one with disabilities, what next? How specific does your will have to be?
Yeah, what normally happens is that you'll name an alternate after you to be the guardian, and then you'll also hopefully have another person after that. And what happens at your death, and if you're the guardian at your death, then the attorney will take the will and the death certificate and go to probate and do a new guardianship. And in most of the cases, I've done a couple of these, is that the judge will agree to the person that you've named in your will and go from there. Of course, they can have a criminal background, so that's one of the main issues with that. But if that person's deceased, then what the judge will do is first look at the grandparents, then look at the brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, and then a third party after that. That's the rules of intestacy in the court system in Texas. So that's why we tell you don't die without a will, even for minor children, because the court's going to go to a grandparent first. Your parents may be great, but they may not be the right ones to look after your special needs child or your typical child. And then they're going to go down the line like that. So it's a lot easier for the courts to review who you have in your will. And even if you've got a will done, we can do a separate document on the outside naming guardians. So, and then we do what we call codicils to will, is an amendment to a will, and we can add things like that to your wills. But that's how that works.
Okay, very good. Couple of more questions. Can you email your fee schedule, or is it just, you know,
I normally like, I'm fairly reasonable, and I like to understand what the situation is first. I have a range of fees for will packages and trust and things of that nature, but it really depends on the will package, depends on whether you're having a testamentary trust in it or whether it's a simple will without a trust. So, but you know, if anyone calls me, I'll be glad to discuss that with them.
Okay. A couple of more questions. I have a dad who emailed me, and his son is in his 20s. Didn't realize about the whole SSI thing and applying. So when you mentioned the whole has to be 5 years, so if he goes ahead and, you know, puts it either in a trust or an ABLE account, that's not really going to help him. He will still be denied for SSI because it was sooner than the 5 years.
No,
The Social Security Administration is smarter than that.
No, it really depends on what happens at age 18. It goes on it goes on the disability, of course, but it goes on how the disability affects gainful employment. That's the word, gainful employment.
Right.
90% of the cases, if a parent applies for SSI and they don't understand that, they're just sending in medical reports on the child's disability, and in most cases they're going to be denied. And because what these parents have to do, and you well know that with family who counsels, They
Correct.
have to have a letter from the doctor. And of course, our situation, my daughter was still in schools, but we did have information on how, if she was working,
Mm-hmm.
that how her disability affects that. And that's what you actually have to put in with the SSI application. And
Right.
in most cases, the parents don't know that and they get denied the first time. But then when you have your doctor write something on, like if he's 20 something years old, maybe he has had some work engagements. And we had a situation a couple of months ago where we went in front of an administrative judge, and all we had to do was basically have notes from the child's, he's 26, I believe, from the
Mm-hmm.
notes from the child's work where his work was affected by his disability.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to get back to age 18 his SSI for that. So that's things to talk about. With this individual, with the 5-year look back, you may have to be creative in putting together a rental agreement,
Yeah,
and
I think,
see how that works. Mhm.
yeah, I think I may have not been very clear, and I apologize for that. So there were too many assets that the son had.
Mhm.
The father never applied for SSI.
Yeah.
He's now doing it, and the son might be late 20s, early 30s, I don't recall. So he's now putting that money in different assets that are protected, that Social Security will not consider in his name. But are they going to consider it in his name because it's been less than 5 years?
Yeah, they will. If it's under the Social Security number, they'll find it, and you just can't give
They will.
assets.
It's
You
not
can't
like
give
you can
assets
just
away.
hide them away and they're
Yeah,
not going to find them.
you can't sell, or if he has a house, you can't sell a house for $1 to your dad and be counted. So all that's going to count against him, and it may be where, depending on the amount of assets, he'll have to wait 5 years before he's.
Okay.
But again, there's different ways of doing that.
Yeah,
So
Leslie asked, could you put it in a first party trust?
no.
No, you can't. Okay. Okay. So,
Well, if he had assets that he owned, you just can't take those assets and put into a first party trust in certain situations. So again,
I'll have him call you. How's that?
yeah, that's better.
There you go. So, one last question. The issue of guardianship. If someone is say arrested, and again, these are all true stories. I don't just pull these up out of the sky. I have a family that I was working with, and the young man was arrested. And he is on medication, as many of our young adults are. The guardians, like, weren't even able to talk to him while he was in jail, and he didn't know where to pick up a phone. So me being a co-guardian went down to try to establish some communication and couldn't. So it's kind of like, where's the disconnect?
Yeah, I'm not a criminal attorney, so I don't know, but you should, that person should have been able to call an attorney, or you could have got
Okay.
an attorney for to talk to them.
Okay.
I don't know how they deal with co-guardians, but
Okay.
you,
Okay. So yeah, I see what
if
you're
you,
saying.
if you go down there with your guardianship letter, then they have to, depending on the situation, they have to let you at least know everything about what's going on, and
Yeah.
then you
Okay.
can call an attorney.
Got it.
Yeah. I would like to mention is that liability. I have a lot of clients ask me, well, what if I get guardianship? Am I liable for a crime that my child commits or young adult commits? No, you're not. Uh,
Hmm.
you can't keep your child from having sex. You can't keep your
Exactly.
guardian child from moving in with someone as
Hmm.
long as they're not under immediate danger. And that same goes with the liability. Now, if just say, for instance, you've got a child that had a juvenile record, okay,
Hmm.
and due to that juvenile record, we won't go into it, but he or she, well, he may not need to be around females in a group home or in a setting. And I think there could be some liability involved with the guardians if you don't tell the administrator off that issue and something happens in that group home or in that day program that your young adult may be in. But other than that, maybe some medication issues if you're under guardianship and you're supposed to give them medications. In guardianship, you can take away medications or allow them to take their own medications. So I think from those standpoints, there could be some liability, but in most cases, it's not.
Right. I don't see any other questions in the chat box. If I missed something, please unmute yourself. Boyd, I can't thank you enough. One of the many things I really like about you is how approachable you are. And very easy to talk to, and you speak in English.
Well, with our daughter, we've been through most of this ourselves, and being a second career, I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and so it's always a pleasure to at least tell people as much as we can to help them out. Because when we were coming up, we didn't have the internet.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. You mean this is more fascinating than looking at rock formations?
Yeah. I miss that, but it's still fun. Carrie has my wife, Carrie has a whole bookcase full of books, and, that's how she learned in the old days. And of course, now we can Google everything, but it's a lot of bumps in the roads that hopefully we can help parents navigate those bumps. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Can I just say something?
Yes, please.
Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I did want to drive you guys to the website because I write special needs parenting blogs along with some general law blogs that you might find interesting, and there's an extensive resources section that might be helpful to everybody. This is from 20-something years of compilation through what we've learned from our daughter, and the special needs parenting blogs are some of our experiences. So hopefully you'll find value in that. I post them on my Facebook page every Tuesday, or I try to anyway, depending on how much I can write during the week. But if anybody has any questions for Boyd, just feel free to use the contact information and you'll get a copy of the PDF as well.
Great. Yeah. Yes, I will be sending that out. If you registered and I have your email address, you will be getting a copy of the slides along with the survey link and the image for the presentation for 2 weeks from now.
And I will say my wife has some wonderful blogs on what it meant to her or some of the struggles that she went through as a mother of a special needs child. And it's really some very good reading. And
I think a lot of the parents can probably relate to the one that I called My First Depression.
Yeah.
Some of these were published. I had 7 that were published on EP Magazine. If you're not familiar with the online EP Magazine, it's a very good publication. Lots and lots of resources in it. And we got permission from the author. If anybody knows the article called Welcome to Holland, which was the first article I read written by somebody that had a child with special needs, and it is brilliant. And I got permission from the author to post that on Boyd's website. It is in the special needs parenting blog section.
Yeah, no, it is a great article. It really is. So, Boyd, Carrie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reach out to them. Really an amazing family. They understand it. They live it. And they want to pass on their knowledge and help others. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Many thanks again to Christina. And to Leslie, who didn't want to show her face today, but that's okay, Leslie. We love you. And I just am so happy that you all joined us. I think at our highest number, we had about 29 or 30 people, which was terrific because we had about 38 people signed up. So that was really, really terrific. So I'm so thrilled you all joined us. Have a wonderful day. I will be sending out the slides. Please follow up and let us know if Family to Family Network can help you in the future. Many thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.